The views and opinions expressed by the following program are those of the host, guests, and callers and are not necessarily those of this station or Webster Rock Hill Ministries, its management, or other hosts or underwriting sponsors. Programs presented by KWRH-LP are for educational and entertainment purposes only.
Welcome back to In Tune. This is Arnold Stricker with Ellie Wharton. We've been talking about the USS Missouri BB-63, and we're coming up on the 75th anniversary of it being launched from the Brooklyn Shipyard.
And I am learning so much. I just want you to, I tell you that every week, but it's always amazing the amount of knowledge you come to us with and just continuing to help us understand the history of our country. Thank you again for that.
Well, you're welcome. And I had a great opportunity to meet Petty Officer Third Class Machinist Mate John Atkins. And I want to thank Steve Dotson, who's the Post Commander of American Legion Post 111 in Shrewsbury. He introduced me to John. They are good friends, and I know that they're listening right now to this broadcast. And John was a great interview. He had a tremendous amount of information, a great story, and he was on the Missouri from the time it left Brooklyn Shipyard through the Panama Canal to Pearl Harbor, where they were bombarding Iwo Jima, then down to the surrender of the Japanese, and then back up to New York. So he was on the ship that entire time. He was, for those of you that don't know what a machinist mate is, that's working in the engine room.
So hot, close to the danger, right? I would think.
Beneath the water.
Beneath the water. So he didn't see sunlight for a long time.
No.
Amazing.
So we're going to hear John Atkins, Petty Officer Third Class Machinist Mate. And again, thanks to Steve Dotson for arranging this interview. We're with John Atkins, who was a member of the U.S.S. Missouri BB-63 crew when the Japanese surrender was signed. We're going to talk to him about how he got on the Missouri and where he's from and a lot of the stories that he can relate to us about his time on the U.S.S. Missouri.
I was drafted in, and when I first went in, I was on a destroyer. Then I got off of it and got on to the old battleship New York in Chesapeake Bay, and I got off of it. They give me new construction, and that's how I become on the Missouri. That was in 44. That was about the Missouri was commissioned for the first time was in June of 44. And we never got into the war zone in there until 45.
Now, when did you actually get on the ship? Were you part of the crew from Brooklyn when it came down through the Panama Canal, or?
Oh yes, yeah. I was part of the canoe, on the Missouri. And we went through the canal and come out into the Pacific, and we wound up about Christmas time in Pearl Harbor. And then we went from there, went into the war zone.
Going through the Panama Canal must be pretty interesting.
Well, when they left on the Missouri side, those fenders they have, there on the side, when they went up in the canal, raised it, them fenders was smoking. Well, it was the beam there, was only 108 feet wide. That's how wide the Missouri is. And then with the heat, it made it swell more. Mm. And that I think the canal is only 110 feet wide. So I'd only give a couple of feet extra to get up through there.
That must have been interesting to experience that.
Yeah. Then it went into the bay there, and then we dropped back down into Panama, and was there overnight, and then went into the Pacific.
Were you in New York and Brooklyn when the christening happened?
No.
So you were stationed on the ship after that, because they had kind of a skeleton crew, didn't they?
It was almost done when I got onto it. When I first got onto it, it wasn't painted yet. It was still in the inner part of it was still yellow, And I had to go over there. What we done, we'd go over and light the boilers off, and they were setting the pop-off valves, for the steam. The first time I ever went in there, I lost my way out. Then the guy told me to go by the beams, the number of the beams. That way, then I could find my way in and out of it.
Interesting, because that ship is almost 900 feet long.
Well, it's 878 feet, 3 inches long.
Not that you're getting specific on this. And 108 feet wide, and at the beam.
And then from the keel to the top of the mast is 209 feet.
Wow.
3 inches. I don't know where they come in with this 3 inches, but it was all.
Maybe they had a little leftover steel or something.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So, what was your specialty? Were you a machinist mate, or?
I was a machinist mate.
Okay.
I was a fireman first,
Okay.
and then we had to graduate up from that,
Mm-hmm.
and then I got to be a third-class machinist mate.
Petty officer, third class, machinist mate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you get through the Panama Canal, and you're on your way to Pearl Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
And is that when the Missouri took on more crew at that time? Because how many?
No, they didn't take on more crew. What we done in Pearl Harbor, we took all the Christmas mail out to the fleet.
Gotcha.
They loaded that all on.
So how many crew on the Missouri?
About 2,400.
Wow.
And then 165 officers.
How many crew did it take to run all the screws and get the boilers going and everything down in the engine room?
Well, let's see, I had a watch on there in the pump room, and I had 4 guys under me down there. And then in the front before the boilers, there was I think 3 up there, or 4 it was. And then they heat that steam up to 600 pounds. Then they run it through another boiler and raise the heat to $850. So that made it dry steam.
Top speed, 33 knots?
33 knots was as fast as it could go.
That's cooking.
Yeah.
That's cooking on the water
Yeah.
for a ship that big.
You know how many horsepower that takes? 2,012 horsepower.
Killing.
That's what they could, accumulate.
So were you kind of intimidated by the size of the ship and by
yes.
the guns, the 16-inch
Yeah.
guns? And
Yes, that thing weighed 45,000 tons. Empty. Loaded, it was 58,000 tons.
wow.
You often wonder how could all that weight float out there?
So, and were you kind of surprised that it was floating?
Yeah.
So if we were to walk up to, if we were in dry dock and we were to walk up to the propeller, how tall is one of the propellers? Because they had 4 props on there, I think.
Well, they had 4 propellers. They had 2 was 5 bladed, and then 2 was 4. 2 was for speed, and 2 was for power.
Okay.
34 knots was about the best I could get out of it,
Are those things like, 10 feet tall or 8 feet tall? Or
Oh, they were somewhere in that neighborhood. I don't know if this told it or not.
17 and 18 feet, the propellers. So you're on the Missouri, you're in Pearl Harbor, it's Christmas, 1944, and you're headed out, and what's the first action that you see?
The first, in Pearl, we had to go out and be classified.
Okay. What does that consist of?
Well, where they could shoot the guns and how they could shoot them, stuff like that, That was about it for that.
Making sure everything was working.
Yeah. When we first got over there and we went out and got into the fleet, we just, we started doing bombardments is what we did. Iwo Jima and Mogmog and a lot of them other islands out there.
Did the sound of the guns shock you when you first heard them go off?
No, they would take
Oh.
the whole ship, you know. Any dust or stuff up in there, it'd come down.
You knew things were happening then.
Yeah.
Were they ever shooting like all 9 off at the same time?
No.
Okay.
If they did, they'd shove the ship sideways. You know, take one, shoot this one, then this one.
Alternate. Okay.
You know, alternate them back and forth.
Okay. So how far after you guys were at Iwo Jima did the kamikaze pilot come in and hit the ship?
I don't remember that too. I know that it hit it, but I was on watch when they was in general quarters.
So that kamikaze pilot hits the starboard side of the ship?
Starboard side, right back by the number 3 turret.
Okay. And apparently there's still some kind of dent in the side?
There's a dent in, yeah.
Wow, even today. What I read was that the captain did not want to throw the Japanese pilot who had died over the side, that he actually gave him a
military funeral.
Military funeral, and that was very interesting that happened like that. It was very honoring.
Yeah, well, we honored the people, you know. He was Japanese, but still, he's a human.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, that was somewhere up on close to the Japanese mainland, you know.
Mm-hmm.
About almost from the time when the war was almost over.
So you were down in the engine room when that was going on?
Yeah.
How far down is that? How far below the regular general main deck?
Oh, somewhere around about maybe 20 feet.
Okay.
It drawed 32 feet of water. So when you look at it, there's 32 feet underneath down, you know, down.
From the keel to the water line?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you're down, you're actually below the water when you're working?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was at the bottom of it.
Oh, gee.
Almost in the bilges.
Oh, my gosh. Was it hot down the engine room?
It was quite warm.
Especially, and you were...
Yeah, but we had big fans blowing, you know.
Okay, okay. What are some interesting stories from working in the engine room?
There wasn't too many interesting stories down there. We had, I know at one time down there we had trouble with the one of the pumps for taking the water out of the main engines and putting it in the aerating tank. What we done, we pushed the wrong button and they threw too much water up there to cool it down. Well, they had to have steam in there to force that out, to come down here to get into the feed pumps, to pump the main pumps, to pump up into the boiler. And we had a little time with that. We took care of it.
Luckily, you weren't in any kind of battle situation when that was going on, hopefully.
No, that wasn't really a battle. We weren't in a battle or nothing. We were just steaming out there, you know.
You got through that scrape. What are some other battles or transportation accompaniments or other kinds of things that you remember, like maybe when an admiral came on or there was a change of, like the fleet admiral came on, did he ever use the Missouri as his fleet ship?
Well, Admiral, the one admiral there, he used it as a flagship. you know.
Flagship, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And what is a flagship? Explain that, John.
Well, what a flagship is, it takes care of the fleet.
Okay.
Okay? What happens after the battleship Missouri is out there to protect the aircraft carrier. And then you've got a bunch of destroyers, and most generally there's a
Cruiser?
no, there's another name of a ship there. Name like after the city. I can't think of the name of that. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
They take care of that's what they do. They just, protect the carrier, really.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. But we were in 3 different battles. I didn't even know when we were in them. I was just down in the fire room. I know I was on, on general quarters. But what went on up there, I don't know. I never seen them.
So several other people from the state of Missouri served on
Yeah.
the Missouri.
Well, the only one that I really knew about was nephew was on there, Truman's.
President Truman's nephew.
Yeah, he was there. Of course, I had a buddy who was from Missouri here, a guy by the name of Bill. That's him and I. That's about all I know about him. I didn't know there was that many. You know, there was 44 of us from the Missouri that was on it when the surrender was signed.
Okay. Did you ever see when they took the amphibious planes, did they crane them down or did they just kind of go off catapult off the back of the ship?
Catapult off with a 5-inch shell. And the only time I seen them go off was we were down on the shakedown cruise down there off the coast of South America. I was standing there and they revved that plane up. I mean, it really just fast as it could go. And then you fired that shell and there he went. You know, he goes off, he goes down and then goes
Comes
up,
back
you know.
up, yeah.
Yeah.
So they would just land and then craned back up to the ship?
Yeah, well, they had a crane on the back and they'd drop it down and pick it up. He hooked it right between his legs here.
So you were down by South America then too?
Oh, yeah, well, we went down on the shakedown cruise.
Okay, what's a shakedown cruise?
Well, they tried everything out, shot the guns. They see what speeds we could make and see if all the engines or all the motors and stuff was working. See in other words, how the ship worked.
This is on the Pacific side? Atlantic side.
Atlantic side.
When did you hear that the ship was going to be used for the signing of the Japanese surrender?
It was it got around through the ship quite a bit, you know. The South Dakota was kind of messed up too, so that they thought they were going to be the signed up. But there's one thing new about all of it. If Roosevelt would have lived, it'd have been signed on to New Jersey because they had put an elevator on there so he could go up and down in there because he thought he was in a wheelchair.
Right.
A lot of people ask me, why did they sign it on the Missouri? I always say to them, who was the president?
Makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
So how did the announcement come through that this was going to take place? And I think it was, September 2nd or the first part of September sometime?
Well, September the 2nd was signed.
Okay, but you knew about it?
Oh, we knew about it before.
Okay.
Yeah. Another thing, too, about when it was signed, we had to wear whites. If you couldn't be on deck, nobody was allowed on deck with the blue teams.
Too many pictures were going to be taken.
Yeah.
Too many films were going to be made. So you find out, and was everybody on the ship supposed to be on deck? Or were some people...
Well, you know, you don't know, but all them guns was loaded.
Wow.
They were ready in case the Japanese come out and attack the Missouri. They were going to, and the guys talked them out of it because they said if you do, they'll drop atomic bombs on the rest of the cities. But they didn't know we only had 2.
So where were you when the signing took place?
I was on the after deck. I was back by number 3 turret. You know, we had stations then where we always had to go on deck, you know, for that. And I told the chief back there I had to go to the bathroom. And I went right through that ship and got up there. And I got up there in time to see the Japanese sign and one other one. And I figured, well, you better get back there. So I got down and got back out there.
Now the signing took place on starboard side, kind of number 2?
Yeah, on the captain's deck.
Okay, on the captain's deck. Okay.
Yeah. It's not down on the main deck.
It's
one
up higher.
deck up.
Okay. And I hear there's now a plaque there.
Yeah, you know, after the war was over, we stopped in Hawaii, and that's where they put that plaque in the deck.
I saw pictures of the Missouri right by the Arizona, and it's just a powerful picture. You have the Arizona Memorial, and then the Missouri is just looking right at it, and the beginning of the war and the end of the war right there within close proximity of it.
Well, that was the theory by having the Missouri as a museum in Hawaii. It started on the Arizona and ended on the Missouri.
Mm-hmm. You have any favorite stories or funny stories from your time on the Missouri?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of that admiral's name.
Halsey?
Halsey. We were allowed 2 hours on the deck every day if we worked, down below. And I was sitting there, leaned up against the bulkhead, and here comes this Marine comes by, hollering, the Admiral's coming. Well, we get to stand up. Here comes Halsey, and he said, sit back down. He was a nice old man. He had got a silver mounted saddle. He said he was going to ride that white horse through Tokyo. And this guy from Colorado sent him a saddle, and they'd put it have it on the back down there, and they had this Marine back there polishing the silver on there. And he came back there, Halsey did. He was just like talking to him, just like we're talking here. He was a nice old guy.
He was a normal guy.
Huh?
He was a normal guy.
He was really normal.
And just because he was an admiral didn't go to his head.
Well, we had even that captain on the board ship. He wouldn't talk to you,
Now that was the second captain, wasn't it? You had one captain prior to.
Wasn't
the same one as the
They had, when I was on there, I think they had 2 different captains. One of them was Captain Atkins. He's no kin to me, but that was the name of one of them.
The signing took place in Tokyo Bay.
Yeah.
And as soon as what I saw, I watched a clip last night of that with General MacArthur, and he did his little speech, and he said, "We're done." And
now these retreats are over. Yeah.
Everybody went their way, and did I guess the dignitaries got on the other ships and took off? And did you guys leave the bay at that time?
Yeah, they just left. I could have got off in Tokyo Bay. And then I asked Chief, I said, well, why can't I just stay and ride this one back instead of that tanker? He said, fine. So I went back through with him, went back through the canal up to New York, and that's where I got off.
Were you stationed on another ship? Did you get orders to go to a different ship?
No. I was discharged.
You were discharged then?
Yeah, I had enough points to get out.
Okay. So you were in the Navy for how long then?
Well, I went in the 13th of April in 43 and got out in November the 9th in 44.
Okay.
So I was in there about 2 years or a little better.
Okay. What did you do after you got out of the service?
Well, I was born and raised in Hannibal.
Okay.
And I come down here looking for a job and just stayed. I've been here ever since.
Okay. What have you been doing? What was your vocation? A welder?
A welder, yeah.
Okay, wow.
Most of my welding was done with maintenance welding.
Okay.
Stuff like that.
Okay. So I hear you work out every day.
Yes, sir.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you're how old?
98.
You don't look it.
I'll be 99 next Monday.
Well, happy birthday.
Thank you.
You don't look that much over 80, 85.
Yeah.
You don't. You look really good.
Yeah. The first thing I do is get on that treadmill, and then I get on the bike, and then I get on the muscle machine.
Mm-hmm. Have you been back to Hannibal? Do you have a relation
No,
there?
I've been wanting to go up there. They got a wall up there, and they got all of the names of the guys that was in World War II. Mm-hmm. They say I'm on it.
Have you been to Pearl Harbor since the Missouri's been? Okay.
back in 98, I got a telephone call, and they asked me, said, how would you like to go to Missouri, or to go to the Hawaii? I said, I can't afford it. Said, oh, it'll be free. And what it was, I went over there, Channel 30 sent me over there.
Very cool.
And then they broadcast, film over there, and then they'd film it back here on at 10 o'clock at night for a week. I took that one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So did you see some of your old shipmates there?
No. That's when I joined the Battleship Missouri Association.
Okay.
They were over there at that time, and I met some of them, but I never met anybody that I had been close to on the ship.
Okay.
They only had they had a meeting on the ship for this, and there was 100 of us there that had been on the Missouri when the peace treaty was signed.
Wow.
Just 100 of us out of 2,400.
Wow. That'd be a great honor.
Yeah.
Just to be recognized like that after all those years and the time. So did you all call it the Mighty Mo when you were on it?
No. I never got that name here until a few years ago that they started calling it the Mighty Mo,
So tell me about these pictures that you have here.
Of course, you know what that one is.
That's the surrender photograph.
Yeah. This one here was after the war, and they were taking guys off from Missouri and putting them on to Wisconsin because they were going to invade, go into, on shore there, to go into Japanese.
And this is
That's the Missouri group.
That's the Missouri group.
She is 16-inch gun.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and you're right here. Right here. Okay.
Right there.
Second from the right on the first row.
Yeah. This one here, the catapult is gone.
Yes, it is.
So this was taken after the...
The other thing I didn't realize, I always thought Battleship Gray.
Yeah.
The Missouri had this...
Okay, when we went down on the shakedown cruise, they had it that black and white and gray.
Yes.
That's when they had it that color. But when they got back to ports, back up, to New York, they repainted it gray.
Why did they paint that black on it? It was kind of like camouflage or something?
I don't know. But that's what color it was on the shakedown.
I never knew that was like that. So when the Japanese surrender in Tokyo Bay, it was gray.
It looked like this.
Okay, all right.
It was quite interesting, piece of history.
You lived that history.
Yeah.
You've experienced that. You were there when the signing happened. You were there when the kamikaze plane hit the Missouri.
Yeah.
You were there when it left the Brooklyn Shipyard.
Yeah.
That's some history that most of us just get a chance to read in a book.
Yeah.
Or see the video clips.
Mm-hmm.
But to talk to somebody who was actually there in person, that's huge. It's an honor for me to talk to you, John.
That was John Atkins, Petty Officer Third Class Machinist Mate, who served on the U.S.S. Missouri during 1944 and 45.
That was exciting. It was
a great interview. I really enjoyed that. Thank you, John, and thank you, Steve, for making that possible. This is Arnold Stricker with Ellie Wharton of In Tune. You're listening to KWRH-LP 92.9 FM, your community radio station in Webster Groves, Missouri.